I told you on this show 2 months ago, if you think it was bad now, you should have seen it when he first took over. He said, guys, when I first took over, it was like 7 or 8 happening in a day. At least we're having one a week, okay? That's going to happen when you have alpha males in a room. Alpha males don't want to listen to rules. That's just how it's always been.
Can I just say this, by the way? I tell me if I'm wrong here, but I'm slowly starting to get vibes that he is turning it's going to take a while for this to happen, but he is just gradually, slowly turning into his mentor, Nick Saban.
He's there. He's been there.
He seems like in the past, and again, maybe I'm off base here, he was a little less jaded, and I think now he just seems just so, I'm done talking to you guys. He's like, he's so out there in the media. I can tell he's done putting up with people's shit.
Not only is he there, he was there after the first natty. Like, he's been there. He's been to that spot.
Yeah.
You know, but for me, listening to him today and him talking about the one thing that that keeps me up all night long is complacency. If you're a fan of college football and you have a favorite team, you did not like hearing what you heard today from Kirby Smart, because that man is obsessed with not being complacent. Okay. And so, look, they have a lot of question marks. A lot of people around Georgia, I already know, they think Carson Beck's more talented than Stetson Bennett, but being more talented doesn't win you natties. Okay. Yes. At the quarterback position, we've seen the most talented quarterbacks, Bryce Young, never win a national title. They have a lot that they have to replace offensively and defensively. Now, they've reloaded. They're my favorite to win the SEC. I don't think that you could pick against them right now to not be your favorite in the SEC. But what did you take away today from Kirby and a lot of the things that he said?
Well, the big thing you brought up is the complacency comment. And I know that for an outsider, it's easy to just hear that and be like, oh, it's coach talk. He's just saying, what every coach is going to say. But being in a locker room, being around a coaching staff, and also understanding what the dynamics are, and especially the history of qualities of teams that are this good that they can win 3 straight national championships. I think this is a really telling statement. You said that if you're a fan of a team that's not Georgia in the country, you should be afraid. If your head coach shows up at media day and he is championing and bringing up the importance of not being complacent, that to me shows why you should be afraid of what could happen for Georgia, because they're not going to allow what happened the past 2 seasons stop them from achieving it again this upcoming year. Look at all the times that there have been dynasties across college football. A lot of the times, those guys, when the previous class is out, the next class comes in, they assume that they're untouchable. And that's how you lose football games. If you overlook opponents the same way that they did against Missouri this past year, that is how you lose football games. The only thing that stands in Georgia's way is themselves. It's the only thing.
I don't agree with that. Let me tell you why I don't agree with that. Because Stetson Bennett had more starts as a college quarterback in his entire career. At junior college, he played some at Georgia before he left. Carson Beck, we don't know a lot about Carson Beck. So I agree with what you're saying. I understand with what you're saying. I don't think that people realize how big of a replacement it is to replace Stetson Bennett. Look, me and you every Saturday throughout the year had this debate about Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
Buddy, he is a back-to-back 2-time national champion. Okay? I don't give 2 Rudy Poos what you say about him. I don't care about him as a prospect. I care about him as a college quarterback. And you're having to replace a guy that led you to 2 national titles. Blake, what about the defense? The defense didn't show up against Alabama. Joe, they did not show up twice against Alabama. They did not show up against Ohio State. You know who did? Big Daddy Stetson.
Okay, 2 things here. First of all, Stetson Bennett Was a
If
great
you
college
say
quarterback.
sucks, I swear to God, I'm going to punch you in your
He
little
doesn't
face.
suck. I've never said he sucks. That was never my argument. But it's not like he's Joe Burrow that you have to replace. That's not
Joe
what we're
Burrow
talking
never
about.
won back-to-back national titles, though, Joe. That's my point. You have to come
Like-
to a realization. Okay.
Like we're gonna just pull back for a quick second here. The same thing I said in January, Blake, is consistent here now.
You picked
was-
TCU to beat
He
Georgia.
was a part of a national championship winning team. He personally did not win them a national championship. Joe Burrow is a big reason why LSU won the national championship. And if you put a different quarterback on the team, I don't know if the result's the same. I know that I could have grabbed a number of different SEC quarterbacks and dropped them onto that roster, and they would have gone on to win a national championship game, a national championship. They're going to be fine with Carson Beck.
Then what happened
the rest
with
of the
Bryce
roster
Young and
around them
CJ
is so elite.
And what happened with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud?
They didn't have the supporting cast that Stetson
No.
has. That's my point. That's why I'm not worried about Carson Beck.
CJ Stroud had a 3rd and 6 that if he would have converted it, they would have won the game. He fumbled. Literally. You know who didn't fumble?
Stetson. But my whole point here is that the supporting cast, the roster, the depth that is coming up for the next group, the offensive line, the defensive line, the secondary, the linebackers, all of that is just as good as last year. And at some positions, they're improving. I don't think that Carson Beck would have to be the worst quarterback in the SEC for there to be a concern at the quarterback position.
That's not true, because you just had the first overall and 2nd overall pick did not go to a natty and got beat by Stetson to do it. My point is experience 9 times out of 10 when it's a late game and it's tied. Experience is going to trump your talent.
It is. It absolutely will.
That team does not have defensively enough experience at a lot of positions that you say, okay, who was the defensive tackle last year?
Jalen Carter.
And then the Jordan Davis before that. Remember when Alabama beat them in the SEC championship game? Oh, look how lazy they've gotten. Look how lazy they've gotten. You don't know about the kids behind him. Losing Bear Alexander is a big deal. It's a massive deal that nobody – Joe, it is name their interior defensive linemen and the experience that they have. Why are teams that have won national titles, 6 of the last 7 national title winners, had at least 20% senior retention rate on their teams?
The experience level in the upperclassmen, though, for Georgia is different for most programs. A lot of those guys didn't play significant reps. And Kirby Smart even mentioned how Quay Walker didn't really play as a junior. He steps in as a senior, and then he goes on to be a first-round pick. They have a very different roster structure than most teams. But what I'm trying to get at here is after they won the first national championship, we were talking to ourselves and saying, nationally, we were saying, what happens if Stetson Bennett comes back? Does he get beaten out by Brock Vandagriff? And he was considered to be average up until the final few games of the season. And then suddenly he's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of college football. The narrative on him,
one of the greatest quarterbacks in college football, though, Joe.
The narrative on him flipped so quickly. And we talked about him just having to be average. All you need is an average level quarterback with that roster to win a national championship.
I highly disagree with that, because average quarterbacks do not make the throws that he did in the 4th quarter to win against Ohio State. They don't.
I don't want to backtrack too much on a debate that we had in January, but I'm not worried about Carson Beck. I think that
I'm not worried about Carson Beck, but at the same time, when it's a close game and he does not have the experience, you have to admit that there's a question mark that you don't have answered.
Fair. I'll give you that. It's still a question mark.
Okay.
Still a question mark.